Ella Thompson had been looking forward to this night for weeks. She was a single mother of two, Michael and Sophia, and after years of hard work and sacrifice, had just received a well-deserved promotion. Tonight, she wanted to treat her children to a memorable celebration, something a little more special than their usual family dinners. So she chose the Ivy Room, the most prestigious restaurant in town, known for its luxurious ambiance and top-tier cuisine. As they entered the restaurant, Ella felt a surge of pride and excitement. The Ivy Room was beautifully decorated with gleaming chandeliers, elegant artwork, and deep mahogany furnishings. She had saved up for this experience, and she wanted her children to see a world they usually didn't have access to. Dressed in her best attire, Ella held her head high, exuding confidence and happiness. They approached the host stand, where a man named Carl, dressed in a neatly pressed suit, stood with a stiff, disapproving expression. Ella greeted him with a warm smile. "Good evening. We have a reservation for 3 under Thompson." Carl's gaze lingered on her a moment too long, his eyes narrowing slightly. Ella could sense something cold in his demeanor, but she tried to ignore it. "One moment," he said tersely, as he flipped through the reservation book without enthusiasm. After a pause, he said, "Follow me," and led them to a table at the very back of the restaurant, far from the main dining area. Ella noticed how isolated it was, but she shrugged it off, trying to focus on her children's excitement. As they settled into their seats, the waitress arrived, barely making eye contact as she handed them their menus. Her tone was curt, and Ella couldn't help but notice the stark difference in the warm greetings extended to other tables. The sting of exclusion was faint but present, and she pushed it down, wanting her children to enjoy the night. "Mom, look at the big chandelier," Michael, her 9-year-old, said, pointing in awe at the intricate light fixture above the center of the dining room. His eyes sparkled with curiosity, and Ella smiled, trying to immerse herself in her children's wonder instead of the growing unease she felt. "Yes, honey," Ella replied, smiling warmly. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" They placed their orders, and Ella attempted to keep her children entertained while they waited. Michael was full of questions about the fancy dishes he saw on other tables, and Sophia, her 7-year-old, was admiring the delicate table settings. It was a precious moment for Ella, watching her children's faces light up with wonder and excitement. But the ambiance shifted when Carl returned to their table, his expression cold. He cleared his throat loudly, interrupting their conversation. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to keep your children quiet," he said, looking down his nose at them as though they were disrupting the entire restaurant. Ella was taken aback. Her children had been nothing but well-behaved, talking no louder than anyone else in the bustling dining room. She forced a polite smile, trying to keep her composure. "I'm sorry if we disturbed anyone. We'll keep our voices down," she said, her voice calm but her heart pounding. Carl's lips tightened, and he gave a curt nod before walking away. Ella noticed the curious glances from nearby diners, and she felt a wave of embarrassment. But she didn't let it show. She didn't want her children to see her discomfort. She kept up her cheerful demeanor, hoping to salvage the evening. When their food arrived, Ella took a deep breath, grateful for the distraction. She hoped they could finally relax and enjoy their meal. However, just as they began eating, Carl returned once more, his face twisted with a look of irritation. "We've had complaints about noise," he said bluntly, his gaze piercing. Ella looked around, bewildered. The restaurant was filled with the sounds of people laughing, talking, and enjoying their meals, far louder than her children's hushed conversation. Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, but she maintained her calm. "I don't understand," she said softly. "We're not being any louder than anyone else here." Carl's expression hardened. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave. We don't tolerate disturbances at the Ivy Room," he said coldly, his voice loud enough for nearby patrons to hear. Ella's heart sank. She looked at her children, their faces filled with confusion and hurt. Holding back tears, she gathered her purse and their things, her pride refusing to let her show how humiliated she felt. She took Michael and Sophia by the hand, lifting her head high as they walked out of the restaurant, under the judgmental stares of diners and staff. Outside, Michael looked up at his mother with wide, sad eyes. "Mom, why did we have to leave? We weren't being bad, were we?" Ella's heart broke as she knelt to hug her children. "No, sweetheart. You both were perfect. Sometimes people just don't understand. But don't worry, she said, her voice gentle but firm. This isn't the end. That night, as she lay awake replaying the painful incident, Ella felt a fire ignite within her. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much to let a moment like this break her spirit. She wanted more than just a meal at a fancy restaurant. She wanted a place where people like her and her children could feel respected, valued, and welcomed. Determined to make a change, Ella spent the following weeks researching. She pored over business books, watched online classes about restaurant management, and spoke with other small business owners about their experiences. Slowly, a dream began to take shape, a vision of a place where everyone, regardless of who they were, felt like they belonged. While volunteering at a community center, Ella shared her story with Mr. Thompson, a retired restaurateur who had once owned a successful dining establishment downtown. He was touched by her story, nodding with understanding as she described her vision. Ella, he said kindly, I think you have what it takes. A person with heart and passion like yours can change the world, one step at a time. He offered to mentor her, guiding her through the process of building a restaurant from the ground up. And with his support, Ella's dream began to take tangible form. Mr. Thompson was so impressed by her determination that he decided to invest in her business, providing her with the initial funds needed to bring her vision to life. One evening, while browsing through property listings, Ella's heart stopped. The Ivy Room had been listed for sale. The very place where she had been humiliated and treated unfairly was now within reach. With Mr. Thompson's encouragement, she decided to go for it. The irony was not lost on her, but she knew in her heart that it was the perfect way to turn her pain into something beautiful. Ella bought the Ivy Room, and renovations began immediately. She transformed the dark, pretentious atmosphere into a warm, welcoming space. She hired a diverse staff, each member trained not just in hospitality, but in the values of respect and kindness. The menu was reimagined, featuring dishes that celebrated different cultures, and she carefully chose every detail, from the lighting to the music, to create an environment that felt like home. The new Ivy Room opened its doors with a soft launch, inviting people from all walks of life. The response was overwhelming. Word spread quickly about the restaurant's transformation, and soon people from all over the city came to experience the new Ivy Room. Ella was often on the floor, greeting guests and sharing stories, making everyone feel like family. She was hands-on, not just managing, but connecting with the people who came through the doors. Her children, now a bit older, helped out on weekends, proud to be part of something so meaningful. One evening, as she moved through the restaurant, she noticed a family sitting at a table in the corner, whispering and pointing in her direction. It took her a moment to recognize them, but when she did, her heart skipped a beat. It was the same family who had been at the Ivy Room the night she had been thrown out. She watched as they whispered to one another, one of them murmuring, "She's the new owner." Ella sonrió, una ola de emoción lavando sobre ella. She approached their table, her heart pounding, but her voice steady. "Good evening," she said warmly. "I'm Ella, the owner. I hope you're enjoying your meal." The family looked at her with a mix of surprise and respect, clearly moved by her journey. One of them spoke up, saying, "We remember you." "We were here that night." His voice trailed off, embarrassed. Ella nodded, her expression softening. "That night was difficult, but it also inspired me to create a place where everyone feels welcome." As she spoke, Carl, the former manager who had treated her so poorly, walked in, his face full of disbelief. Ella's gaze met his, and she saw the shock and regret in his eyes. He had heard about the restaurant's transformation and had come out of curiosity, but he hadn't expected to see Ella as the owner. Carl stood in the doorway, his eyes wide with disbelief, as he took in the transformed Ivy Room, and Ella standing confidently at its heart. He hadn't anticipated this. A world he thought he knew had changed, and with it, so had his sense of control. Carl had returned out of curiosity, unable to resist seeing what had become of the restaurant he once managed. Now he found himself confronting not only the physical transformation, but a personal reckoning as well. Ella spotted him almost immediately. A surge of emotions flooded her. Memories of that humiliating night and the unwelcoming treatment that had spurred her journey. But standing there in her restaurant, Ella was no longer the vulnerable woman he'd dismissed. She was now a proud, self-made owner who had turned her painful experience into something powerful. She took a deep breath and approached him, greeting him with a calm but firm smile. "Welcome to the Ivy Room, Carl. It's changed a bit, hasn't it?" Carl's face flushed. His posture, once arrogant and overbearing, had lost its edge. "Yes, it certainly has," he managed, looking around as though searching for the pieces of the old Ivy Room he once controlled. "I heard the new owner was you." Ella Asintio. "Yes, I wanted to create a place where everyone is welcome, where respect is a given." Her gaze didn't falter as she continued. "A place that wouldn't turn away families or treat anyone as less than." Carl swallowed, clearly affected by her words. He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Ella could sense his discomfort, the dawning realization that his actions had played a part in something far bigger than he'd understood. "Would you like a seat?" she asked, gesturing to an open table nearby. Carl hesitated, visibly thrown by her kindness, but eventually nodded. Ella signaled one of her servers to attend to him, treating him no differently than any other guest. It was a gesture that symbolized both her forgiveness and the new standard of kindness she had established at the Ivy Room. As Carl sat in the transformed restaurant, he watched as Ella greeted guests, laughing and connecting with them as though each one were family. It was something he had never done in his time there. He'd run the restaurant with a cold detachment, seeing the guests as transactions rather than people. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had been blind to the impact his attitude had on others, while Ella had turned her pain into a place of healing. Across the room, Ella's children, Michael and Sophia, came over to help their mother clear a table. They moved with confidence and pride, clearly proud of their mother and the place they now called their own. Carl's gaze softened as he watched them, realizing the extent of the family's strength and resilience. For the first time, he understood the harm his actions had caused, not just to Ella, but to her children, who had been unfairly judged. After a while, Ella returned to his table, setting down a dessert on the house. She smiled gently, meeting his eyes. "This is our signature dish now, something I thought you might enjoy," she said warmly, giving him the chance to taste the restaurant's new flavor. Carl took a hesitant bite, savoring the rich flavors that burst forth. The dish, Ella's creation, symbolized everything the restaurant now stood for: a harmonious blend of tradition and innovation, of struggle and resilience. Ella sat across from him, sensing he had something to say. He cleared his throat, struggling to find the words. I want to apologize, Ella," he said finally, his voice shaky. "I was wrong. I treated you unfairly, and I never thought twice about it until now." Ella nodded, her face calm and composed. "Thank you, Carl. I appreciate your apology." She took a deep breath, allowing the weight of his words to sink in. "But you should know that it wasn't just about me or my children. You had the power to affect every guest who walked through those doors, for better or for worse. It's a responsibility that shouldn't be taken lightly." Carl looked down, the gravity of her words settling heavily on him. "You're right. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. This place, what you've done with it, is remarkable. I wish I'd understood sooner." Ella offered him a small, understanding smile. "Sometimes it takes a big change to help us see what we couldn't before, but what matters is what we do with that realization." She reached out, patting his hand gently. "And you have the opportunity to make things right, not just here, but in everything you do moving forward." As the evening went on, Carl lingered at his table, absorbing the warmth and hospitality that had become the essence of the new Ivy Room. Ella's staff, diverse, vibrant, and passionate, worked with a sense of purpose and pride, embodying her values and vision. It was a world Carl had once shunned, but now he realized it was something he yearned to be part of. Months passed, and the Ivy Room flourished, becoming a beloved cornerstone of the community. Ella's story had spread far and wide, inspiring people from all backgrounds to come and experience the restaurant's welcoming atmosphere. She became a symbol of resilience and transformation, showing that adversity could be turned into something beautiful. One afternoon, Ella received a letter in the mail. It was from Carl, Inside was a handwritten note expressing his gratitude and admiration for everything she had accomplished. He explained how her journey had inspired him to change, to reevaluate his own values and actions. He thanked her for showing him that true power lay in kindness and inclusivity, not authority or control. Ella read the letter with a mixture of emotions. She was glad to know her impact had reached even those who had once stood in her way. Carl's journey was proof that change was possible, that people could learn and grow if given the chance. The Ivy Room continued to thrive, drawing patrons from near and far, who sought not only a meal, but a meaningful experience. And Ella's children grew up watching their mother lead with strength and compassion, learning valuable lessons about resilience, respect, and the importance of treating others with dignity. As the years went on, Ella remained a beloved figure in the community, a reminder of what could be achieved when one refused to let bitterness define them. The Ivy Room stood as a testament to her journey, a place that welcomed all, a haven of warmth and respect. Ella's story was passed down, shared among patrons, inspiring those who faced their own struggles. She had transformed a place of exclusion into a sanctuary of acceptance, where everyone, no matter who they were, could walk through the doors with their heads held high, knowing they were valued. And as the lights dimmed each night, Ella looked out over her restaurant, filled with love and laughter, and knew she had created something far greater than she had ever imagined. The Ivy Room had become more than just a restaurant. It was now a beacon of hope, a place where people from all walks of life gathered, drawn by the warmth and inclusivity that Ella had carefully cultivated. Locals and travelers alike came not only to taste the incredible food, but to experience the story behind it, the remarkable journey of the woman who had turned discrimination into empowerment. Ella's story became a point of pride for the community, and her name was known far and wide as a leader and advocate. She used her platform to bring attention to causes close to her heart, including economic opportunity for marginalized communities, and was actively involved in charity work. She held special events to raise funds for local schools, provided training and job opportunities to underserved youth, and even started a mentorship program for young women aspiring to work in business. The Ivy Room's success caught the attention of the media. Reporters from popular food and lifestyle magazines, news outlets, and television shows arrived to interview Ella, curious to understand how she had taken a painful experience and transformed it into something powerful. Her story resonated deeply with audiences, and soon she was featured in multiple publications as a success story, her face gracing magazine covers and her name becoming synonymous with resilience. However, as the Ivy Room flourished, Ella knew there was still work to be done. Despite her accomplishments, she was reminded every so often of the systemic challenges that individuals in her community still faced. She became a fierce advocate, speaking at panels and community meetings, highlighting issues of inequality, access, and justice. One afternoon, after a particularly well-attended community event at the Ivy Room, Ella received an unexpected visitor. Carl had returned, looking older and humbler, but with a different kind of determination in his eyes. Ella was surprised but greeted him warmly, remembering the apology he'd offered during his previous visit. "Hello, Carl," she said, extending a welcoming smile. Carl nodded, glancing around at the busy restaurant with a look of genuine appreciation. "Ella, I hope you don't mind me coming by again. I wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course. Let's sit," she said, leading him to a quieter corner of the restaurant. Carl took a deep breath, his expression one of earnest reflection. "I've been doing a lot of thinking since the last time I was here. I realized that I let my own prejudices, my own fears, dictate how I treated people. I've been ashamed, but your example showed me that change is possible. I want to make amends, to really learn and grow from my mistakes." Ella listened, her heart softening as she saw the sincerity in his eyes. She could tell that his remorse was genuine, that he had done some soul-searching. "Carl, it takes courage to admit when we're wrong, and it's even harder to try to change. The fact that you're here, willing to have this conversation, says a lot." Carl nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "Thank you, Ella. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I wanted to let you know that I'm trying. I've been volunteering at a community center, working with people I had once kept at a distance. I've learned more in these past few months than I did in a lifetime." Moved by his words, Ella smiled warmly. We all have the capacity for change, Carl. I'm glad to hear that you're using your experience to make a difference. It's never too late to learn and grow. As they continued to talk, Ella felt a profound sense of peace. The pain of that initial experience had faded, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and pride. Not only had she transformed her own life, but she had also helped someone else see the world differently. After Carl left, Ella reflected on her journey. She had taken a painful memory and transformed it into a force for good, a symbol of unity and resilience. Her restaurant had become a space for healing and reconciliation, a place where people could come together, regardless of background, and experience the joy of connection. Months turned into years, and the Ivy Room continued to thrive. Ella expanded her mentorship programs, helping young women and men from underrepresented communities gain experience in hospitality, entrepreneurship, and leadership. She saw firsthand how opportunity could change lives, and she remained committed to making the Ivy Room a place of growth for all who entered. One day, as Ella was preparing for a special anniversary event to celebrate the restaurant's success, a young woman approached her, holding a notebook and a determined expression on her face. She introduced herself as Maya, a local student with dreams of opening her own business someday. "Ms. Ella, I just wanted to say how much you inspire me," Maya said, her voice filled with admiration. "I've been coming here for years with my family, and your story gives me hope that I can make a difference too." Ella felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. Seeing Maya's enthusiasm and passion reminded her of why she had started this journey. She took Maya's hands in hers and said, "You absolutely can, Maya. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Believe in your vision, stay true to yourself, and remember that challenges only make you stronger." As the years passed, Ella's impact continued to grow. The Ivy Room became more than a restaurant. It became a legacy, a place where people from all walks of life could come together, celebrate, and feel valued. Ella's story was shared across generations, inspiring countless individuals to embrace resilience, compassion, and the belief that change was possible. In time, Ella's children took on roles within the business, helping to expand the Ivy Room's reach and continue their mother's legacy. They carried with them the lessons she had imparted: the importance of kindness, the strength and perseverance, and the power of transforming adversity into something beautiful. Ella knew that her journey had come full circle. What had once been a painful memory was now a beacon of hope, a reminder that love and determination could overcome even the deepest wounds. And as she looked out over her bustling restaurant, filled with laughter, joy, and connection, Ella felt a profound sense of peace. She had turned her dream into reality, and in doing so, had created something timeless, something that would live on in the hearts and minds of those who had been touched by her story. The Ivy Room would forever stand as a testament to the power of resilience and transformation, a symbol of what could be achieved when one chose to rise above and create something beautiful. The Ivy Room's grand reopening had attracted people from all over the city. The elegant decor, the soft glow of the lights, and the warm, inviting aroma that filled the air made it clear that this was a new chapter for the restaurant. Yet as successful as the Ivy Room was becoming, Ella couldn't have anticipated how much her life and the lives of those around her were about to transform. Ella's vision for the Ivy Room went beyond simply serving meals. She wanted it to be a place where people from all walks of life could find comfort, connection, and respect. As part of that mission, she started hosting community nights, where families, friends, and even strangers were encouraged to gather, share stories, and enjoy each other's company. It became a tradition that the restaurant staff eagerly looked forward to, and an event that brought people together in ways Ella had only dreamed about. One evening, during one of these community nights, a woman entered the restaurant, pausing for a moment at the entrance. Her hesitation and nervous glances toward the crowd didn't go unnoticed. Ella spotted her immediately, recognizing the unease on her face. This wasn't unusual. Over time, the Ivy Room had attracted people from many different backgrounds and experiences, some of whom had never felt welcomed in spaces like these. Ella approached her with a warm smile. "Hi there, I'm Ella. Welcome to the Ivy Room. Are you joining us for community night?" The woman, visibly relieved by Ella's kindness, smiled back, though her eyes held a hint of sadness. "Yes, I heard about this place, and wanted to see it for myself. My name is Denise. Ella welcomed Denise in, introducing her to the other guests and ensuring she felt included. Denise quickly warmed to the lively, inclusive atmosphere, and as the night went on, she shared a bit of her story with Ella. She was a single mother who had experienced her own hardships and was looking for a new start. Moved by Denise's story, Ella felt a sense of connection with her. She saw in Denise the same resilience that had once carried her through difficult times. Ella offered her a position at the Ivy Room, hoping it could be a fresh beginning for her, just as the restaurant had been for Ella. Denise accepted the offer, and over time, she became an integral part of the Ivy Room family, finding stability, support, and purpose. As the Ivy Room continued to thrive, so did Ella's impact on the community. She became known as a trailblazer, a woman who had turned adversity into triumph, inspiring countless individuals to pursue their own dreams despite the challenges they faced. Her story resonated with so many, and she was frequently invited to speak at events and share her journey. Ella, ever humble, always emphasized the importance of community, resilience, and treating others with respect. But not everyone was ready to embrace the change Ella represented. Some people from the past, individuals who had once harbored resentment and prejudice, felt uncomfortable with her success. One such person was a former manager of the restaurant, now retired, who harbored deep-seated biases and had been vocal about his disapproval of the new direction the Ivy Room had taken. He couldn't accept that a black woman, once turned away, now owned and operated the restaurant he had once controlled. One day, this former manager, a man named Leonard, entered the Ivy Room. The staff, aware of his reputation, treated him politely but kept their distance. Ella, however, approached him with the same respect she extended to all her guests, determined to show that she held no grudges. "Good evening, Leonard. It's been a long time. Welcome to the Ivy Room," Ella said, her voice warm and welcoming. Leonard looked around, his gaze critical. "You've certainly changed things around here," he muttered. "Yes," Ella replied, unfazed by his tone. "We wanted it to feel like a place where everyone is welcome." Leonard raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? I don't remember you being so eager to please when you were just a customer here." Ella's smile didn't falter. "I learned that kindness and respect go a long way, Leonard. It's something we prioritize here every day." Leonard scoffed, dismissing her words. "Kindness doesn't pay the bills. I hope you're not running this place into the ground with your inclusivity nonsense." Ella didn't take the bait. "Our approach has brought people together in ways I never thought possible. It's more than a business to me. It's a place of healing and community." Leonard left that evening, grumbling under his breath. But Ella's strength and grace in dealing with him left an impression on her staff, who admired her poise. They had seen her turn an uncomfortable encounter into a teachable moment, embodying the very values the Ivy Room stood for. A few weeks later, Ella received a letter from a local organization dedicated to promoting diversity and inclusion in businesses. They wanted to honor her with an award, recognizing her contributions to the community and her commitment to creating a space of acceptance and unity. Ella was deeply moved by the recognition, seeing it as a testament to the journey she had undertaken and the impact the Ivy Room had made. The award ceremony was a celebration of Ella's journey and a powerful reminder of how far she had come. Friends, family, and members of the community gathered to honor her, sharing stories of how the Ivy Room had touched their lives. Denise, now one of Ella's closest friends and a key member of the staff, spoke tearfully about how the restaurant had changed her life, giving her hope and a sense of belonging. As Ella stood on stage, looking out at the faces of those she had inspired, she felt a profound sense of gratitude. She had built something beautiful out of a painful experience, and in doing so, had transformed her life and the lives of so many others. In the years that followed, Ella expanded the Ivy Room to new locations, bringing her message of inclusion and resilience to even more communities. Each new restaurant carried the same warmth and spirit, a tribute to the journey that had started with a painful experience, but had blossomed into a legacy of love, respect, and empowerment. Ella's story became a beacon for others, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, one could choose to rise above and create something beautiful. The Ivy Room would forever stand as a testament to the power of resilience, the strength of community, and the belief that every person deserved to be seen, respected, and valued. As the Ivy Room grew in reputation, word of Ella's journey spread beyond the city. People from across the country began to take notice, some even traveling miles to experience the warm and inclusive atmosphere she had created. Her story resonated not only with those who had faced discrimination, but with anyone who valued resilience, strength, and community. Ella's influence extended beyond her role as a business owner. She began receiving invitations to speak at conferences, universities, and community centers. Her speeches touched on themes of overcoming adversity, the importance of fostering inclusivity, and how to rebuild in the face of hardship. Each appearance was a reminder to her audience that no one should be underestimated, and that dignity and respect were owed to every individual. During one such event at a well-known university, Ella was introduced as a trailblazer who turned pain into power. She stood before a packed auditorium, her heart full of gratitude as she took in the faces looking up at her with admiration and anticipation. Sharing her story wasn't always easy. Reliving the painful experiences, the sting of rejection, and the heartbreak of feeling less than. But Ella knew that her words held the potential to inspire change, just as her own transformation had. "Standing here today," she began, her voice steady, "I'm reminded of a time when I was told I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong. But life has a funny way of turning things around. Sometimes the very things meant to break us are what lead us to our greatest victories." The Ivy Room started as a place I couldn't even sit down in, but today it's a place where everyone has a seat at the table. The audience erupted in applause, many standing to show their support. Students, professors, and community leaders alike approached Ella afterward, sharing their own experiences and expressing how much her story had moved them. Some asked for advice on handling discrimination, while others thanked her for giving a voice to those who had none. Ella left each event feeling renewed, her resolve strengthened by the knowledge that her story was helping others. Back at the Ivy Room, Ella remained as hands-on as ever. She continued to work alongside her staff, from the kitchen to the front of the house, treating each person as a valued member of her family. Under her leadership, the restaurant wasn't just a business. It was a home for many, a safe space where people could share their stories, celebrate their victories, and find solace in times of struggle. One evening, a familiar face entered the Ivy Room. It was a young woman who years earlier had been in the restaurant with Ella and her children on that fateful day when they'd been turned away. The woman, whose name was Rachel, had never forgotten the look on Ella's face as she was escorted out with her family. She had felt a deep sense of shame and regret for not speaking up, for not challenging the injustice she had witnessed. That day had haunted her, and hearing about Ella's transformation and success had only heightened her remorse. Rachel approached Ella with tears in her eyes. "I don't know if you remember me, but I was here that day, the day you and your children were turned away. I was at a nearby table. I wanted to say something, but I didn't, and I've regretted it ever since." Ella placed a comforting hand on Rachel's shoulder, her eyes filled with understanding. "I remember that day well, Rachel, but holding on to anger or resentment doesn't help anyone. What matters is what we choose to do now. You're here today, and that's what counts." Rachel was visibly moved by Ella's grace. "Thank you for being so forgiving. You've created something beautiful here. The Ivy Room is more than a restaurant. It's a symbol of hope and change." Ella sonrió, agradecida por las palabras de Rachel. The Ivy Room had indeed become a symbol, not only for the community, but for anyone who needed a reminder that even the darkest days could give birth to light. A few weeks later, Ella received a call from the mayor's office. The city wanted to honor her contributions to the community with an award for her work in promoting inclusivity and bridging cultural divides. They planned a ceremony to celebrate her achievements, inviting community members, local leaders, and even some of the former patrons who had once witnessed her being turned away. It was a full-circle moment that underscored how far Ella and the Ivy Room had come. On the night of the ceremony, Ella stood on stage, surrounded by friends, family, and countless supporters. As she accepted the award, she spoke about the power of resilience, the importance of compassion, and her vision of a world where everyone could feel safe and valued. "This isn't just about a restaurant," Ella said, her voice filled with emotion. "This is about all of us, standing up for what's right, offering kindness to those who need it, and creating spaces where everyone can feel they belong. The Ivy Room may be just one small corner of the world, but it's proof that change is possible. As the crowd applauded, Ella's heart swelled with gratitude. She had taken a painful experience and transformed it into a source of strength, healing, and empowerment. The Ivy Room was no longer a place that reminded her of rejection and exclusion. It was now a beacon of hope, a testament to her journey, and a reminder of the power that lay within every individual to make a difference. But even as she stood in that moment of triumph, Ella remained grounded. She knew that the work was far from over. Every day, new challenges would arise, and the fight for respect and equality would continue. But she was ready. With each smile she shared, each hand she held, and each meal she served, Ella carried forward her mission to honor the humanity in every person who walked through her doors, and to show that, in the end, love and resilience could overcome even the deepest scars of prejudice. Ella's story would live on through the Ivy Room and beyond, inspiring generations to come. And in that moment, standing on stage with her community by her side, she knew that she had finally come home. With the award ceremony behind her, Ella found that her story was far from over. The Ivy Room continued to thrive, and with its success came opportunities Ella could never have anticipated. She was approached by journalists, community leaders, and even documentary filmmakers who wanted to bring her journey to a wider audience. At first, Ella was hesitant. She hadn't opened the Ivy Room to seek fame, only to create a place of belonging. But as she thought it over, she realized how powerful her story could be in inspiring others to stand up against discrimination and adversity. It wasn't long before a documentary about the Ivy Room and Ella's rise from hardship to triumph premiered in the city's independent film circuit. The film delved deeply into Ella's early struggles, her initial rejection at the very restaurant she now owned, and the resilience she exhibited to turn a painful experience into a life-changing success. Viewers were touched by the intimate, unfiltered look into her life and the dedication she showed to her children and her community. One evening after a screening, Ella was greeted by a woman named Carla, a former employee of the original restaurant. Carla explained that she had been working there the day Ella was turned away, and she'd seen firsthand the discrimination that Ella had endured. Her voice shook as she told Ella how it had haunted her since. "I was young," Carla admitted, "and I didn't feel I had the power to stand up for you back then. But I knew what they did to you was wrong. Watching you now, seeing all that you've accomplished, it's incredible. I wish I had done more to help." Ella held Carla's hands, her face filled with understanding. "We all have regrets, Carla. What matters is what we learn from them and how we grow. You're here now, and that takes courage." "Thank you." Carla ended up joining Ella's team at the Ivy Room, where she quickly became one of the most dedicated employees. Seeing Carla work with such devotion was another reminder to Ella of how transformative a little kindness and understanding could be. Soon, Carla was managing outreach initiatives, helping Ella establish new community programs that extended beyond the restaurant. Together, they organized cooking classes, mentorship programs, and youth workshops designed to empower local kids and teach them skills they could carry into adulthood. One of the most significant moments came when Ella initiated a scholarship fund for young people in the community. The scholarship was aimed at those who had experienced adversity, encouraging them to pursue higher education or vocational training. She named the fund after her mother, honoring the woman who had taught her the values of resilience and compassion. The fund grew quickly, thanks to donations from patrons of the Ivy Room and from people across the city who had been moved by Ella's story. Ella's children, who had been with her through every step of the journey, were her biggest supporters. They saw their mother's accomplishments and were deeply inspired by her resilience. Her oldest daughter, Ava, even began volunteering at the Ivy Room, helping with the scholarship fund and the community programs. Ava shared her mother's dedication to service, and together they continued to strengthen the bonds within their community. But Ella's challenges were not over. The more success she found, the more she encountered people who doubted her or criticized her approach. Some accused her of focusing too much on her story of adversity, suggesting she was using it to draw sympathy. Others questioned her commitment to quality, claiming she was prioritizing community outreach over running the restaurant. But Ella stayed grounded, relying on her purpose and the support of those who believed in her vision. On one particular evening, a man entered the Ivy room and asked to speak with Ella. He introduced himself as Peter, the son of the previous owner who had originally expelled Ella and her children. With visible remorse, he explained that he had recently learned of Ella's story and had been deeply ashamed of his father's actions. "I'm sorry for what you went through because of my family," Peter said, his voice filled with regret. "I wish things had been different. I wanted to come here and apologize in person." Ella listened intently, sensing the sincerity in his words. She took a deep breath, choosing her response carefully. "Thank you for coming, Peter. What happened that day was painful, but it set me on a path I never could have imagined. I'm grateful for what I've been able to create here, and I hope that what I'm doing with the Ivy Room will make a difference for others." Peter nodded, his face a mixture of relief and gratitude. He thanked Ella for her forgiveness and for turning what could have been a story of bitterness into one of compassion and strength. Over time, Peter became a frequent visitor to the Ivy Room, even volunteering to help with some of the community programs. His presence served as a reminder that change and growth were possible, even for those connected to a painful past. As the years went by, the Ivy Room continued to flourish, becoming not just a restaurant but a community landmark. People from all walks of life gathered there, drawn by the warmth of the environment and the kindness that Ella and her staff extended to each guest. The restaurant became a symbol of resilience, a place where stories of hardship were met with understanding and where everyone was treated with dignity. In one final act of giving back to the community, Ella announced her plan to open a second location of the Ivy Room with a focus on providing culinary training and employment opportunities for disadvantaged youth. The new restaurant would have a teaching kitchen, giving young people a chance to learn valuable skills and gain work experience in a supportive environment. The announcement was met with excitement, and donations poured in from patrons who wanted to help make the new location a reality. On opening day, the new Ivy Room was filled with the same love and warmth as the original. Ella stood at the entrance, welcoming guests alongside her children and her dedicated staff. As she looked around at the bustling restaurant filled with smiling faces, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had turned her pain into purpose, her setbacks into triumphs, and her dreams into reality. The Ivy Room story was far from over, but Ella knew that whatever lay ahead, she would face it with the same strength and compassion that had brought her this far. She had built something that would last, something that would continue to inspire and uplift long after she was gone. Ella's legacy would live on not only through the Ivy Room, but in the lives she had touched, the community she had empowered, and the spirit of resilience she had shared with the world. Ella had not only reclaimed her place in that restaurant, but had created a home for everyone who had ever felt out of place. And as the years went by, the Ivy Room remained a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of forgiveness, and a reminder that one woman's strength could indeed change the world. Months after the second Ivy Room location opened, Ella found herself marveling at how far her vision had come. She had transformed her pain into purpose and used it to build a legacy that extended far beyond the four walls of her restaurant. The Ivy Room had become a sanctuary, a place where people felt seen, heard, and valued. And Ella's success continued to draw attention, bringing in supporters, activists, and philanthropists who wanted to back her mission. One evening, as Ella was locking up the original Ivy Room, she was approached by a woman with a familiar face. It was Marjorie, the former manager, who had been at the restaurant the day Ella and her children were thrown out. Marjorie's face was lined with age and remorse, her eyes downcast as she waited for Ella to acknowledge her. Ella greeted Marjorie with a calm but guarded expression, unsure of what to expect. Marjorie explained that she had carried the guilt of that day for years, feeling ashamed for having turned a blind eye to the discrimination Ella and her children faced. "I've wanted to apologize for so long, Ella," Marjorie said, her voice trembling. "I stood by and did nothing when you were mistreated. I didn't have the courage to do what was right. But seeing what you've accomplished now, how you've turned that pain into something so beautiful, it's inspiring. I just wish I had done more." Ella's gaze softened as she listened. "Thank you for coming here, Marjorie. It took courage to confront the past. We can't change what happened, but we can learn from it." Marjorie looked visibly relieved. "If there's any way I can help now, please let me know. I'd love to contribute in any way I can. Ella saw an opportunity to turn Marjorie's regret into something positive. She offered Marjorie a volunteer position at the Ivy Room, working with the community programs. It was a chance for Marjorie to make amends and to actively support the mission that the Ivy Room stood for. Over time, Marjorie's presence became a testament to the power of redemption and the importance of allyship in fighting against discrimination and injustice. As the Ivy Room's influence continued to grow, Ella received a call that would take her journey to an entirely new level. A renowned publishing house wanted to produce a book based on her life story. They envisioned a memoir that would cover everything from her early struggles to her triumphs as a business owner and community leader. Ella was initially overwhelmed by the idea of sharing her story on such a large scale, but she knew it was an opportunity to reach even more people who might benefit from her journey. The process of writing the memoir was both cathartic and challenging. Ella revisited memories she had long since buried, recounting her childhood, her struggles as a single mother, and the pain of her initial rejection at the restaurant. But as she poured her heart onto the pages, she found herself feeling a renewed sense of purpose. This book wasn't just for her, it was for everyone who had ever felt marginalized, undervalued, or underestimated. When the memoir was published, it quickly became a bestseller. Readers across the country resonated with Ella's message of resilience, forgiveness, and empowerment. Her story became a beacon of hope, especially for young women of color who saw in Ella a role model who had overcome incredible odds to claim her space in the world. Ella embarked on a nationwide book tour where she spoke at schools, community centers, and even prisons. She shared her journey and encouraged others to find strength in their stories, to rise above the limitations society placed upon them. Her words touched thousands of lives, inspiring others to pursue their dreams and to stand up against discrimination and injustice. Back in her hometown, the Ivy Room continued to thrive, with both locations buzzing with activity. The scholarship fund and youth programs expanded, offering young people not only financial support, but also mentorship and opportunities for growth. The restaurant became a hub for community events, hosting open mic nights, art shows, and even political town halls. Ella had transformed the Ivy Room into more than just a restaurant. It was a cultural institution, a place that celebrated diversity, resilience, and unity. But Ella's vision didn't stop there. With the success of the Ivy Room, she began considering new ways to make an impact. She started collaborating with other restaurant owners across the country, encouraging them to adopt inclusive hiring practices and to create environments that welcome people of all backgrounds. She believed that if every restaurant could become a safe, inclusive space, then perhaps fewer people would have to experience the pain of being excluded and marginalized. Ella's advocacy work eventually caught the attention of national leaders and policymakers. She was invited to serve on advisory boards and committees focused on racial equity and economic empowerment. Her voice became influential in shaping policies that supported small businesses owned by minorities and encouraged workplace diversity. Through it all, Ella remained grounded, always returning to the Ivy Room to connect with her staff, her customers, and her community. She never lost sight of the mission that had driven her from the very beginning, to create a place where everyone felt valued and respected, regardless of their background. Years later, on the anniversary of the Ivy Room's grand reopening, Ella gathered her family, friends, and supporters for a celebration. As she looked out over the crowd, filled with familiar faces and new ones, she felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She had turned her pain into power, her adversity into achievement. Ella knew that the journey had been long and challenging, but she wouldn't have changed a thing. She took the microphone and addressed the crowd, her voice filled with emotion. The Ivy Room started as a dream to turn a moment of hurt into a lifetime of healing. Today, this restaurant is more than just a place to eat. It's a place of belonging, of empowerment, and of hope. Thank you for being part of this journey. Together, we have proven that love and resilience can conquer hate and adversity. The crowd erupted in applause, their faces filled with admiration for the woman who had turned her struggle into a legacy that would endure for generations.